Financial Times a few days ago had reported that 41 Canadian diplomats have been asked to leave India by the 10th of October. Now, today is the 6th of October, so 4 days before that deadline, using the flight route, diplomats have been put into flights and sent away from Delhi to, we are told, Kuala Lumpur, that's the capital of Malaysia, and to Singapore. A large number of these diplomats, we are told, there is no confirmation of it, are from the Chandigarh consulate of the Canadian government, which is where a large number of visas are granted to people from Punjab. So there are allegations of interference in internal affairs, human trafficking, drug trafficking, the support of gangs and terror, and all manner of very serious allegations that have been played to support this demand for these Canadian diplomats to be moved out of the country. But we're going to try and understand it a little bit more, because this is a fast, rapidly changing story. I'm joined now by Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar. He's a veteran diplomat, who's been in the External Affairs Ministry and several embassies across the world. Also joining me live are Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor. I'd like to start with our foreign affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, on this story. Geeta, we all saw that report in the Financial Times, which is when we first heard about, we'd known about the parity demand, but, the specific numbers, etc. Do we know anything more about how many diplomats have been moved out, where they're from, anything to do with the circumstances, Geeta?
Well, details not being shared by either side. I asked the Canadian side because all these information that's trickling in is coming from Ottawa. CTV News reported on the 41 diplomats now having been moved or are leaving India. We sought information from the Canadian High Commission. No comments from there. No confirmation yesterday from the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson on the number and the deadline. So both sides quite much. The fact is, Shiv, both sides are working privately. There are private conversations that are ongoing between India and Canada. Meanwhile, the fact that they've chosen to leave India and go to Singapore, not a far-off destination, a closer destination, in all probabilities, because conversations are ongoing between the two countries. And should there be a resolution, instead of coming all the way back from Canada, they can come back from Singapore. We do not know whether they completely packed their bags and left, or whether they've just left temporarily and are stationed in Singapore. So those details still awaited. But this, like Canada was saying, could impact their visa services, which certainly is going to be a concern for India. A lot of students last year missed or had to skip a year or wait a year because of the visa issues. We'll have to see how that really pans out. Having said that, India is quite determined that if there's interference in India's internal affairs, then India will continue to seek parity.
Okay, that parity, appears to have been achieved with these diplomats being flown out, but we don't know what that next step is. Ambassador Sajanhar, I'm coming to you in just a moment. Just wanted to get a quick word from our reporters. Gaurav is also with me. Gaurav, the diplomats have been flown out to nearby destinations, as Geeta said. What are you hearing from the government? Are talks happening? Are those private discussions that the Canadians wanted, are they happening right now?
So, Shiv, as Arindam Bagchi, the Additional Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, also said that negotiations are on and diplomats always keep a channel of communication open. But there are two things which are extremely important. One, India is still waiting for evidence because all that's come from Canada were credible allegations of a potential link and no evidence. Point one. Point two, India is also unhappy about continued interference in India's internal affairs by Canada, and that is completely unacceptable. It's not as if it stopped, it's not as if it was restricted just to the farmers' agitation or a couple of events in India, but it's continued interference in India's internal affairs. As the former Foreign Secretary Kanwal Sibal explained, the moment people go seeking visas, that is where the interface happens, and that is where, you get people to start working for you, and then Canada starts interfering, is the assessment, and that's just one of the assessments. So will a consulate have to be shut down? Anyway, Canada has an additional consulate in India compared to India in Canada. They have one in Bengaluru, they have one in Mumbai and one in Chandigarh. India just has, and plus the High Commission in Delhi, India just has Ottawa, Toronto and Vancouver. So will numbers be scaled down, especially when criminals, terrorists and criminal supporters manage to get visas and operate from overseas. So India has a dossier ready, which will be shared again should there be a need with Canada. Multiple dossiers have been shared with Canada on inaction against terrorists and overground workers of terrorist organizations and criminal gangs that have been involved in extortion, money laundering and hawala. So all of it, India wants Canada to check and nip this before it escalates, Shiv.
Okay, Gaurav and Geeta, thank you very much for the moment.